A very, 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 very happy new year and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the NSSF Financial Literacy Program, our monthly webinar. Yes, we are back. We last spoke last year, but we are back. This conversation is going to continue on and on and on and on. Because guess what? Money doesn't rest. You don't rest. Why should we rest? Apolombo is my name. As usual, in the next 2 hours, we constitute ourselves into a school of money and we learn about money. We learn about the habits that bring money, build money, lose money. And with me today, I have very, very gracious, very, very experienced teachers of money. You'll get to see them at a certain point later on. But I kindly remind you that Headmaster Sir still remains my title, and you will address us as such in this school of money. So thank you for sparing your 2 hours to just talk about money. Today, here we just talk about personal finance, and we're talking about those things that we can do. We hear the things that people have done, and we are saying whatever they can do, whatever they have done, don't compete. Find what you can do yourself and do it well. I always want to start by reminding you of why we do this. I will not tire from telling you. It's basically threefold. And one, when every citizen in Uganda has options, poverty is the lack of options. If you do not have an option, if what you are given is the only option you have, if NSSF is your only option, then you are poor. So when every Ugandan has options, when they reach retirement and they say, can I take NSSF? Should I go to my rental? Should I go to my business? When you are at that point, then we have delivered our service. We want to reverse the statistics that everyone loses their money immediately they get it from NSSF. We want to reverse that. We want to reverse that, and we want to build a financially empowered membership. That's the reason why every third Tuesday in the month, we sit down and take away 2 hours of your life to talk about these things. We bring about people who have gone through different experiences to talk about these things. because we want to reverse, build, and have options as individuals. And when we have options as individuals, which can be called, we are not poor anymore, but we are on our journey to wealth. I also want to remind you that wealth is not an event, it's a journey. It's a journey. The persons you'll be talking to here, to some of us, we regard them as wealthy, but they are still on the journey. So it's not a deal that you have gotten that deal and tomorrow you are wealthy. So please do not be in a hurry to turn that 1 billion when you are still at 100,000. Take that journey, and we shall take it through before employment, while you're at employment, and when you retire. I want you to evaluate, reflect, and resolve, and fill out those boxes. Make this as simple as possible. I'm not the subject matter expert here, but they're going to be telling you. And I'm saying, start with a blank sheet of paper and fill it out. Fill it out. Fill it out with what you feel in your year. Separate your year into 4 quarters. Separate it into 12 months. Separate it into weeks, days. But whatever you do, start somewhere. Start. You need to evaluate what happened last year. You need to reflect on that and then resolve to move on. We cannot live in the past, but we cannot ignore it either. So, ladies and gentlemen, this new year, a study was carried out, and it was found that of people who resolved, usually it's 35% that stick to their resolutions for that year. All of them. They make their resolutions 10, 5, 1, 3, and they stick to them throughout the year. Experts have also said that don't make more than 3. Actually, I have met one amazing lady, and for her, she has only 1 resolution to connect. So don't, but I'm not the expert here. The experts will talk about it. 50% have stuck to at least some of their resolutions. So you have a higher chance of succeeding if you have fewer resolutions. But whatever you do, you need to resolve. You have 52 weeks, you have 12 months, and get an accountability partner. 1 or 4, not a whole crowd, not the whole village, not the entire Uganda. Get an accountability partner. It could come in terms of a supervisor, a brother. It could come in terms of a coach, a mentor. But whatever you do, when you resolve, don't keep silent about it. So that when you achieve, we just say, that's what exactly I wanted to achieve. There is a number of us who right now are engineers, and probably your resolution when you are young, you are to become pilots, but you are confidently telling us, where I am is exactly where I wanted to be. Why? Because there is no accountability partner to counter that. I also found in one of the research, these are the most popular resolutions people make: health, physical health, weight loss, eating healthy, self-improvement, mental health, work and studies, quitting smoking, consumption, reducing on the consumption, doing something about your personal finance, quitting drinking, to connect more with friends and family, improve your home environment, work on your hobbies, engagement, love. That has been, but what in all this, what is yours? What is yours? It is very, very key that we bring this conversation back to you. As these ladies say, a person can either discipline his finances or his finances will discipline him. As we start this year, I want you to think about that. You can either discipline your finances or have your finances discipline you. Allow me to stop here. I am not the speaker today. I have a full room of speakers, but I will allow Joan, who is our moderator today, to do the honors. Joan is the founder of Imagine Me Africa. It's based in Uganda. She's an international coaching federation professional certified coach with over so many hours of coaching and training. She's on employment transition, but she will tell you more about what that means. Whether it's a person getting into a new job or moving to the next or going into retirement, she's the person, the go-to person. Joan has been kind enough in the last year to offer NSSF, and we have sent this offer to you, our members. Free coaching hours where she just sits with you and you to understand where you are in your journey. Some have used them well, others have misused, but we thank you, Joan. She believes that people need to experience professional coaching. She's the founding and current president of the International Federation, Coaching Federation, Uganda chapter. Her focus is building Africa's coaching hub of choice. Joan, thank you so much for honoring our invitation and starting us our year. It has become a routine that you always start our year. I hope even next year you honor the invitation and you come back. Thank you so much. Please introduce your panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Headmaster. So, Headmaster, sir. So I'm happy to be back to NSSF. Of course, I should say that NSSF is also home because I also have some savings in there. So we are eyeing the money and seeing how it's growing. Just a quick amend to the introduction. Yes, until Saturday, I was the president of the International Coaching Federation. I just handed over the tools of power to somebody called Joseph Ajal. So I don't want the ICF fraternity to say that I've decided to run with the office. No, I handed over. So thank you so much. I'm happy to be here this evening as the moderator for this session. My name is Joanne Mugenzi, and I'm a transformational master coach that is focusing on employment transition and everything that fits into that. And I am a student of money. I learned that when you spend 1 hour every day on a subject for 5 years, you become an expert of that subject. So just ask yourself as you come onto this call, how much time have you spent on understanding this subject called money? Because this is a school. The headmaster told us we need to be reading, we need to be revising, but it's only giving you 2 hours. So 2 hours of 30, find the other 28 hours because you need to be working on that. I'm happy to introduce my panelists. I'm just going to say their first name and then I'll ask them to introduce themselves. But as they introduce themselves, I want them to tell us a little bit about their relationship with money. Because, like I have mentioned, for me, my relationship with money came with that understanding that if I spend an hour every day on a subject for 5 years, there was something that will come out of it. And so I've studied everything money. I think when I look at my library, I have more books on finance than anything else. Of course, not finance of the SCCA guys. I'm talking about finance of if I'm earning money, how do I spend it? How do I use it? How do I make meaningful decisions out of that? And let me first ask my neighbor right here in the class with me, Catherine Jonjo, to introduce herself. Introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and what is your relationship with money.
Thank you very much, Joanne. So my name is Catherine Jonjo. I lead the people and culture agenda at the organization that has the coolest brands in Uganda. I'm sure you know which ones those are. I am an executive coach. Joanne has spoken about helping people transition. I help people with their career development, with what they need to be doing next. So probably I would work better in an organization. Very proud mother of 3 beautiful girls. And my purpose is that I would like to help everybody achieve the best purpose. I mean, they're the best version of themselves. So when Headmaster Sir asked me to come and speak here, I actually thought the reason he's invited me is because someone must have whispered to him that I have a really bad relationship with money. Actually, my bank manager now must be wondering, what's Catherine doing on that stage? So my relationship with money, unlike Joanne's, where she actually is a student, I'm still trying to figure out that relationship. On some days, it's a good one. We walk together, we work together. On some other days, I have no idea where that person goes, and I have to sort of dig very deep to find where did my money go. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to sort of help or learn today from the other panelists in terms of how do I fix that relationship and how do I get onto a better journey in terms of my relationship with money.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine. Beautiful introduction there. Relationship with money. So sometimes you're looking for your friend, and other times your friend is hanging around. And yeah, as a matter of fact, I guess money is our friend and gives us the liberty to do with it whatever it is that we wish. The next panelist that I'm going to introduce, I must say that it's an honor for me to share the platform with him, because I follow him on Twitter, follow the videos that he puts out as part of that journey that I've decided to commit to say, how do I learn about money? How do I learn about growing brands? And as we are on this call, I'm sure we've heard about Mr. Patrick Bitature. Patrick, I'm going to hand it over to you. And we are harnessing the digital spaces. So over to you, introduce yourself, and yeah, share with us, what is your relationship with money?
Thank you so much, our moderator today, my co-panelist, Apollo, and everybody else out there who's listening. I'm a businessman, and some of you have heard about me. The sound is still playing up, but hopefully it will settle. I'm largely a businessman. I'm not a coach. I'm not a professional HR or any of the qualifications, but I find there is a need to share from my experience, especially what I have learned along this journey of understanding the language of money. And that's why I come out to talk, especially to the youth, to empower them so that they don't make the mistakes that we made, and they inculcate as early as possible the habits to make you successful. So today I will be talking a bit about that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, a very interesting introduction right there, and I like the fact that you say that one of the reasons that you honor this platform is the fact that you love to share from your experience. And probably I'll start with you to share with us your experience. What has that journey been like in terms of you working towards this personal finance habits as a person, as a business person? And if I remember correctly, your story starts from about the age of 14. Just share with us, what are those things that you want to share with us from your experience that can enable people on the call to connect and pick something from your experience?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Many people have probably come across the story. It's on the internet, the story of Patrick Bitature, how my life was changed from the time of the Idi Amin regime, when my father was killed, and I had to snap out of the comfort of what I had all my life and accept the changes that were around me, and I had to adapt. So I will be sharing with you a presentation shortly that will take you through, rather than go back through the whole story. But in a nutshell, my view today, especially as we begin the new year, because many people made resolutions last year and some the year before, and we had the excuse of COVID that held us all back. So we were stifled. But now that COVID is hopefully behind us, we've got to reposition ourselves. We've got to refocus. We've got to resolve. And this resolve must be even much deeper, because we've got 2 years. And even the young people who didn't go to school, they are actually stifled because we fell behind our peers in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Tanzania who are studying. So we've got to work twice as hard. So we really have to sharpen our pen. And for those who are just in straightforward education, because education should be one of the silver bullets to success, but not just rote learning. It's got to be financial literacy. It's got to be skills. It's got to be learning how to use critical thinking and those other things that we are not taught. Teaching people entrepreneurship and not thinking that it was just inborn in some people. Some people will have it and some don't. The discipline. These are some of the things that we shall talk a little bit more into detail begin this presentation when I'm given opportunity. So that I take you through the presentation to show you where I'm coming from. And I'll give you a bit of a historical perspective. But for my personal life, because I went through the conventional school system, I went through secondary school, through Namasagari, Nyakasura, Makerere University, then I went to London. But not that education had, but in the real world, I used less than 5 or 10% of what I learned in school. I learned everything after school. I started reading books that were different after school when I settled down in business. I had to first taste business, experience it, go through the pitfalls. And that's what made me who I am. And growing up, going through adversity and developing resilience, that means you are soft on top, but inside you're made of metal. You've got to be extremely strong to pick yourself up quickly whenever you fall, because you will fall. These are some of the challenges, some of the inspiration that I want to leave with the young people, especially, that it's extremely hard out there. Life is brutal. You've got to learn earlier rather than later how to deal with money, and because money is so important to give you freedom. When I see people who don't save, I'm almost in tears. We are so lucky to have an institution like NSSF, where the law was passed and there's compulsory savings for those who work. At first, we saw this as a tax and people didn't want to contribute. Now people are beginning to realize what an asset it is for the country. And we are so proud that we have NSSF. And they have huge funds and they're investing them and they're growing them. And I'm going to talk a bit more also about that in some detail. So around me, I have come from a family that was well-to-do. We lost everything. I went down and I had to survive without a father, without a shield, without protection. And I had to become the shield for my family. And I realized that you've got to inculcate in you values so strong, discipline so strong, that will help you through this journey. Because the journey is long and it's arduous. There are so many hills. And to climb those hills successfully and overcome the challenges that will be thrown at you, you need discipline. You need to save. You need to invest, because investing is the only way you really grow money. If you don't keep investing, your money is not growing. You've got to find a way of saving continuously and investing, so that you're always playing catch up with your investment rather than the other way around. Too many people here have got a wrong value system. It's been warped and it's made worse by social media and also some of the religious beliefs we have had, but I'll talk a bit about that when I go through a presentation, because they are told that you shall be rewarded in heaven. And this perception that people who are rich must be bad people. They must be evil. They've done something wrong. They must have cheated. They must have stolen. They must have gone under the water, or they've done something with witchcraft, which is a wrong perception. It's a wrong belief. Success is a good thing. Having money is a good thing because money gives freedom. So all these things we shall see. I'll try to put them in perspective. But that was a brief intro. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Beautiful reflections right there. And I had the words, the excuse of COVID. And Catherine, I'm going to take you into that a little bit because we are calling it an excuse of COVID. But what I'm picking from Patrick is the fact that one has to be intentional about the money journey. And if you're on the call and you graduate, you're at university, what I hear from Patrick is that whatever he has learned that is contributing to building a business, building a finance, is not necessarily all that he learned in school. Probably 10% of that contributes to that journey, but 90% is the other education that he's had to have outside of the walls of the mainstream schools. Catherine, turning to you, what Patrick just mentioned that sometimes we are simply looking at COVID, and I like the way he's put it, the excuse of COVID. As somebody that comes from the workplace, and yes, you said you work with one of the coolest brands. You didn't tell us which brand, but yeah, one of the coolest. I know that in those cool places we have heavy checks and all that. Just share with us, what did you observe during the last 2 years in terms of the people finances? Just walk us through that.
Good question. Coolest brands start with UG. And I and I know all of us know UG, and I think it's a spirit of Uganda. So maybe just to say that Patrick is right to comment on, to add what he said, that we see COVID as an excuse. I think for a lot of people, it was actually an accelerant. So right now, I think if you've listened to the news, Oxfam are trying to find a way of taxing all the people who made big money because of COVID. We call them COVID millionaires, and these ones made their money, in the right way because they sold masks, they got testing kits out, and that kind of thing. So, but what did we see in the workplace? And the workplace was a mix of two things. There are people for whom this was an accelerant, and they took the opportunities and they were like, oh, I actually have a little dukkha, so I can put my things online. So those who have personal businesses in the office, I saw them putting their products online, doing delivery services, that kind of thing. And then there are those for whom I think the shock to the system was quite significant. And they went into what is called a debt trap. And maybe we can go a bit into that a bit later. And they went into a debt trap because they, I don't want to use strong language. I just want to say that the opportunity, they could not see the opportunity. So what happened is then we started having to help people come out of deep holes where they had sort of found that maybe if I borrow here, if I borrow there, they're starting to hide from people and hiding from landlords. And why I say for us it should have been an accelerant is because in our business, we actually made a firm decision that unless we really had to, we were not going to do pay cuts. But I do know there are organizations that had to make that decision around pay cuts. And even in those spaces, you still find that people went and took advantage of the opportunity, and it became an accelerant rather than an excuse for them. So maybe that's what I'll say in summary, Joanne, around what we saw.
Well, I believe that I mean, when you're thinking about working for the coolest brands, I hope they are not among those that we are asking landlords to give them free space, because I don't know why tenants don't think about the fact that they can also give some more to their to the landlords. They are simply asking for more grace period and all that happening. And it's very interesting the things that you are able to observe in the workspace. And I think the challenge that sometimes we see in the workplace is that when the paycheck is hitting your account on the 25th of every month, you forget about the fact that there's the real world out there. And hopefully this is something that we can challenge ourselves on and say, what did we learn? I hear you mention that people started to run what they tend to call side hustles. I hope if you have what you're calling a side hustle is not just your side hustle, that it is something that you look at as something that you can grow and it can turn into a major income source. Now, Patrick promised us that he has a presentation to make. I don't know if he's able to share his screen so that he kind of makes that presentation, and then that will kind of give us another transition into the next phase of our conversation this afternoon.
Before he does that, let me just introduce to you the people that are on this call as Patrick gets ready to share his presentation. Kindly, we would like to know who you are for the purposes of the panelists to articulate their message. Who are you? So there is a poll question there that who are you? Are you below 20, between 20 and 30, 30 and 40, 40 and 50, or above 50? Are you male? Are you female? Would like to know for the purposes of articulating this conversation. And we would close this poll in the next 3 seconds so that we go to the second one. Kindly close and we see and share these results with the panelists here. So the results are the majority, 41%, are between 30 and 40. We have 29% who are between 20 and 30. Between 40 and 50, we have about 23% and 7% above 50. When it comes to the gender, the majority are male, 54%. Yes, 54%. Males, oh yeah. If Anna Maria is kind enough to give me a second poll so that they get all this information, we want to ask you another question here. For the panelists here to be able to associate with you. Poll question 2. Poll question 2, please. We want to understand if you are a person, do you make financial resolutions? Last year, going by last year, did you make any financial resolutions? Yes, no, or maybe you made. You don't know whether you made or did. Yes or no. Number 2, did you pursue that set of resolutions you had made last year? We are trying to reflect and evaluate. Did you? So there you can let us know whether you partially pursued, absolutely pursued everything, or Somehow, all these are we are giving space to all the types of answers that can happen somehow, or you didn't. I hope you haven't posed my question yet. And number 3, would want to have you set financial goals for this year? Yes or no? Anna Marie, if you can do my have that poll run. Is it running? I don't know what that's a technology, but yes, as we are waiting for the poll to run, it will run for 20 seconds. What is it that did you do any financial resolutions that year, last year? Did you follow through them? And this year, what are you doing? Yes, it had disappeared. Apologies, but it has come back. Kindly use this next 1 minute. As you are filling out this, I'd want to just read out some of these. Catherine, people are saying they like your honesty, talking about your relationship with money. Patrick, they're talking about things, talking about you are our hero, you are my hero, you are my mentor. I'm getting question here, comments on Joan. Joan, thank you for the dine and dream. It is a good guiding stone for my life in the new year. So so much is coming in here. Yes, if we can stop that question, that poll, and we understand. Last year, 78% of the people here made resolutions. 16 didn't. 6% maybe they made. Maybe they are not sure. Did they pursue? 48% did pursue. 19 48% pursued partially. 19 absolutely yes, they did pursue. Somehow were 19%, and 15% it's a no. Have you made financial goals this year? 74% yes. 6% no. 20% they are still thinking. And no one is thinking, why should we do this? So, ladies and gentlemen, Joanne, you see that's the audience we have. Joanne, Catherine, Patrick, kindly, we are eager to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the poll. It gives us an opportunity to understand who is on the call. I want to celebrate the fact that we have 54% male on this call, because when it comes to things finance, in most of the audiences, I tend to find more women, and then I can see that over 80% of the people on the call are between the ages of 20 and 40. So that means we are in a great place for us to be reflecting in terms of finances. Of course, if I block it together to say 20 to 40 years, it's quite wide. But to understand that 41% of these are within the of 30 to 40. We know that 30 to 40 is really the age group where people are beginning to accumulate wealth. They are growing their capital, investing. If you're not doing any of those things, you need to think about the circle of friends that you have, because those are conversations you need to begin having with yourselves. But kudos to the ones that are 20 to 30, because then you begin picking up the right habits. And what better way to pick up is than hearing from somebody who has been in the money space since he was 14. But before I hand it over to him to share his slides with us, maybe Catherine, when you're listening to these statistics, the polls that have been run struck you.
Am I on now? Okay. I think the first one was that the vast majority of our audience is male. That's amazing, because as you say, a lot of times when you do these things, it's the women who come, and actually it's the women who sort of tend to have, who are interested in investment. I also like that as people go through their careers, so they are coming into their careers, and I'm probably going to repeat what you said because it was the same observation, that there are people here going into their careers in their 20s to 30s, awesome. Whatever lessons you pick from here, please keep at them. I learned these lessons rather late in life, like in my 30s. I wished I had learned them in my 20s. So great to see that there's a young population here. Also very inspiring to see that there are people in their 50s here, because that means that you still believe that you can make it, that you want to still learn, and that shows learning agility, because at 50, and some of us have crossed that bridge. It's those ones of, okay, so how do I make this decision, how do I make it, and it helps to have sort of someone else speak about it, and then you pick up ideas from there. So I think those are my observations about the audience, and really glad to have all of you here listening to us, this afternoon.
Great, Catherine. And what I pick from there is that it doesn't matter at what age you are. Today, as you listen in, and usually I say I don't want to run away with 1,001 things from any talk, just one idea. 1-2 things, run away with them, implement them, and see where that takes you. Because it's a financial journey. It's your journey. You understand what comes in and you understand what goes out. You probably know where your money goes. You talking about you and your friends. Sometimes you can't even explain where that has, what journey it has taken. So I think we are going to kind of pass it on to Patrick to lead us through a presentation. And please keep your comments coming, keep your questions coming, because I'm going to ask the headmaster. When you're a teacher, sometimes you have to order some people around. So this time it's an opportunity for me to request the headmaster, sir, to keep an eye on the questions as they come through. So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to a wide audience, invited by NSSF, and I salute the board, the management of NSSF for putting this together and the work they are doing. They have built a momentum which is incredible. And even from the questions, I was looking at the Q&A, many people were doubting NSSF at the beginning, but they have won the hearts and minds of nearly everybody. So much that it's not just compulsory savings now that are going to NSSF, but voluntary savings. People are coming there outside the requirements of the law and wanting to invest with NSSF because they give us a decent return. And when you look at the odds of getting return, many people invest in property and they think, when I build a house, I'll rent it. Very few people get a return of 10% guaranteed. NSSF has done incredibly well in the last few years, so we must commend them for the role that they have played. So, as we enter 2022, we start 2022, we need to refocus if we're going to achieve success. And not just for 2022, we need to focus on the way, our journey going forward, which means you need to categorize your priorities. They must be very clear. What COVID did to us, it ravaged us, it set us back, it pushed so many people back into poverty. So now we need revitalization, we need rejuvenation, we need to be made new, to begin afresh. And that's not easy. Many people think, the government will give us that much needed injection to jumpstart the economy, like many of the European and American countries have done, even the Asian countries. But alas, our country doesn't have such a big resource envelope. It is overwhelmed. We've got a war going on right now with the ADF. That is huge expenditure. We've got COVID we've been dealing with, huge expenditure. We've always had issues around governance, how we mismanage our budgets. Those are huge challenges. So we don't have that much money to spare. Some will come our way, but I think the government is trying to address not so much the middle income, who are most of you who are listening today, but they are going to the bottom of the pyramid. They want to go with the parish development model, which skips the middle tier. Forget about the top tier, but the middle tier, the middle income, the daily earners, those who are employed and are saving, you're not being fully addressed. They are trying to address the lower end of the market to make sure money reaches the bottom of the pyramid. But anyway, that is a full subject for another day. So I want to begin by emphasizing, and I must say I'm emphasizing, the justification for savings. There are only two reasons why we save. We save for that rainy day. You may not think that rainy day will come when you're doing well, but be certain the rainy day will come, whether it is health, school fees, an accident, death, something will happen and will call upon your reserves. So you may think you've done well and you're saving money, but that emergency comes up and you've got to spend the money. You can't say no. And I'll talk about saying no a bit later, where you draw a line. Some things you just have to spend. You put your hand in your kitty and take out the savings. So it's good to always be saving. And the earlier you start saving, the better. If you can save every week, better. If not, at least every month. Please save. The churches have grown because they had a system of collecting money, small amounts of money every Sunday. And every Sunday, a smaller bit comes, a small bit, and they build churches, they build schools, they build hospitals, they build an organization that's global. Because they have a way of collecting small amounts of money regularly, making it a routine. You need that routine. The second reason for saving is to invest. And that is so important. You cannot make investments when you don't have any money at all. And why do we invest? It's the only way to make money grow. If you want money to grow, you must keep investing. What is investing? Putting money where it can grow. You redeploy it. If you put it somewhere and it's getting 5% return, you see an opportunity for 10 or 15%, you move it out of there and reinvest it elsewhere. Many people think, I've bought a piece of land, that is fine. You're counting on appreciation of land. But investing wisely in a smart way, driven by numbers, is so important. And that's why I urge everybody to understand the language of money. The language of money is not Swahili or Uganda or English. It's a different language altogether. It's a currency of its own. And the sooner you understand it, the better. The only way to understand it is continuous learning. Even at my stage, I am still learning. I'm learning the language of money because it's such a dynamic language. We have come out of COVID and we are going into something similar to the Cold War. Are we going to go into another recession, a global recession? How will it impact us? More of that another time. You need to make a plan. I don't care what you call it, a roadmap, a resolution, a New Year's resolution. You need to make a plan. The people who make a plan and write it down are only 5 or 10% in the world, and they're the most successful people because they make the effort to make a plan and write it down. Then you need knowledge. You need to understand how the world operates because it's a continuous changing dynamic system. Whether you're in Uganda or any country, you're in the diaspora, you need knowledge. Knowledge comes from friends, from teachers, from peers, from workmates, the people you hang around, the environment in which you're in. That is knowledge, and knowledge is power. When we're at school, we're developing knowledge, like in the picture on the right shows, the root system of a tree. The roots go down underground. You don't see the benefit of what you've planted because the root system is growing. That is in school. When you come out of school, the root system should now feed the tree to grow into a big stem with the branches and a canopy. And that is the power. You've got to use that. That's how you build businesses and industries and flourish and intergenerational businesses. So you begin with come up. That's why education is important. Lastly, and probably most importantly, is there's no point in having a plan, having the knowledge, and then not executing your plan. So many people don't go into action. You must execute. You must try. Even if you fail, keep trying, because execution is the most crucial part of these 3 points that I've just made. I'm going to give you a historical perspective, because to understand fully why we are where we are, why are we in Uganda, and why are we not doing as well as our brothers in Nigeria or Egypt or South Africa or even Kenya or even Rwanda? When you've got to compare what is happening, those in India, in China, in USA, civilization is said to have begun in Africa. That is not questioned. The first elements or proof of people writing and documenting things was in Egypt. Then it was in India that they had cultures that were so strong. They were so organized before the colonialists came to them. They were so advanced and they had systems that worked. Then China also, very advanced in the olden days. In fact, China was the first one to produce gunpowder. And then the Europeans came and discovered this gunpowder in China. That's how they started expanding and using the power of the gun. Because the Chinese were using gunpowder for fireworks. The Europeans realized we could make guns out of this and conquer the rest of the world. Anyway, we move on. Let's talk about the Agrarian Age. We all came from an Agrarian Age, which is from hunters and gatherers to settlers and farmers. And our priority as human beings, our species, was number 1, food, number 2, shelter. Then you had things like garments, apparel, clothing, protect ourselves from the different elements of nature. Survival, that's how life began. Then we had the Industrial Revolution. That's where there was a stepped change, a very big change from the agrarian society. Unfortunately, some of us in Africa are still living in the agrarian society. The first Industrial Revolution was around the steam engines and mechanics, and the train could move, and shipping began because that was part of the first industrial revolution. That's when the Western world pulled away and started becoming very powerful. The second industrial revolution happened, electricity was discovered. That's about 150 years ago. And electricity became democratized. Everybody in America had electricity. Then Europe had electricity. So they wanted copper to wire their houses, to wire their industries. And they came to Africa looking for these raw materials. The third industrial revolution was around computing. Again, the first world pulled away from the second and the third, and the divisions became even bigger. And lately, we have now moved into robotics, the fourth industrial revolution, where it's all about big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. Most of you understand where I'm going. I'm not going to delve into the problem. I'm just going to try and show you the sequence of what happened. I need to emphasize the power of gunpowder. When the Europeans found this gunpowder being used in China and they took it back home and they transformed it into guns, they could start an era of expansionism, because they used to try and get more territory, more land, more people, using swords, knives, pieces of metal, bows and arrows. But the gun gave them so much more superiority. And this is how they came to trade. They found Africa completely asleep, and the slave trade lasted 400 long years, 400 years, because they had this power. And there were so many black people running around in Africa who didn't have tools to protect themselves. Even Shaka Zulu did so little with his spears and bows and arrows. Then they realized slave trade was not sustainable. They stopped almost on their own because of some pressures internally. Then they became colonial. They had this meeting in Germany and they divided up Africa, and they said even India and some of these other places, and colonized them. It was a matter of time, maybe 50 years, 40 years, they realized that was not sustainable. People started understanding with education and Christianity, and people fought for their independence and they demanded independence. And so an era of independence came, and it swept across the world like a wind. Then we went into the 20th century. Let's take a look at what happened there. Of course, there was the First World War, the Great World War, as it was called, in around 1920. And then there was an era of peace for about 30 years. And then again, we had the Second World War. It was led by Germany, also about expansionism, having superior tools for fighting, having a bigger army. And then the Holocaust, trying to exterminate the Jews. The World War continued until a decisive blow was made by America on Japan, because also Japan had a tendency of fascism and expansionism. They went and dropped a bomb in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The atomic bomb ended it, and that was the end of it. Everything came to peace after that. So we went into a new era of the Cold War and the arms race. It was mainly socialism versus capitalism, the Americans versus the Chinese and the Russians. And these wars went on for some time until around 1989, when the Cold War suddenly ended. Like a wind came and just ended it. And the Berlin Wall fell. When the Berlin Wall collapsed, that was the end of the Cold War. Capitalism gained a foothold and was the superior ideology globally. Years later, after so many years of struggle, the apartheid, then Mandela was released. That was in 1990, the release of Mandela. This was one of the last countries to get independence. Yet it was the first country on the continent from 1930, I think. In 1912, South Africa, ANC was formed trying to fight for independence, but they were the last country in Africa to get their independence. And then that was the fall of that colonial empire, and that ended there. What am I trying to show you? I'm trying to put things in perspective. In the 21st century, globalization, a wind of globalization came and it swept the world, and there was so much growth and so much progress, and the capitalists in the world became richer and richer. The poor people, however, remained poor. Then there was some uprising which began in Africa, North Africa. It was called. And you remember in Tunisia when somebody set himself alight, then it went to Libya, and then Egypt. Governments were tumbling. Then Yemen and Syria, and they were being manipulated. This was people's uprising against a certain order. Then recently, there's been a resurgence of African military coups. We see what's happening around us. We see what's happening in Chad, in Mali, in Guinea, in Sudan. All these uprisings of people who are disgruntled. They've made some progress, but they're not happy with that progress. These are things that are holding us back at a global level, at a macro level. But today I want to talk a little bit more about the personal level. Why are we as individuals, we in Uganda, who have understood a little bit about a culture of saving, about personal success, a little bit about progress, why are we being held back? What are these barriers that hold people from achieving financial success? The first one is the system has been designed to keep you poor. Now, when I say this, how can you say the system has been to keep us poor? The education system we inherited, it's obsolete. It's one of the systems that has really held not only us Africans back, but globally. We were programmed to be workers at the time of the Industrial Revolution. And this began in Germany and UK, and then went to America. And the whole world embraced it because Industrial Revolution meant factories. They needed laborers. They needed people to come and work, human beings to come and work and run these machines. So this Industrial Revolution almost a free education system. Anyway, thank you. So this free education system does not train us to be free thinkers, train us on critical thinking, does not train us to become entrepreneurs. It trains us to be obedient workers, to listen to what you are told by superiors, to respect their space. Come in and do this, learn this, say yes, sir, say no, turn left, turn right. And that's the system we have inherited. It's an obsolete system. It has begun changing in the first world. It's not changing fast enough. Our education system, our curriculum is designed to create white-collar jobs. In Uganda especially, we were being trained to create those jobs, to be the civil servants. In Kenya, there was a bit of industry happening at the time of colonialism. And these setbacks were already there. So we inherited it, and the system has not changed fast enough. Secondly, the social system is designed to keep us the way we are. It's a belief system. We are programmed by the media, by the church, by our cultural values to remain in a society that is poor. We have a mindset of poverty. We have a mindset of absence. We have a mindset of lack of food, lack of water, it's inherited. We have lived around people who are always poor. And this vision, because you are poor when you are young, your parents were poor, you think you're going to remain poor. So when you make a little bit of progress, you feel you've arrived, and that's it. It's not acceptable. We have got to change the whole system. We have been taught the wrong things for so long. We see our parents fighting for money, our grandparents fighting for money. We are fighting for land, people killing one another. And these are the stories we see on radio, on TV, and even now social media. People fighting for the limited resources that we have. Yet we are a society with so much resources, so much opportunity. We have Uganda is one of the richest countries. It's so abundant in so many things, but we are not even scratching the surface of these opportunities. Now, is it our teachers that taught us wrong? I don't blame the teachers. The teachers are noble people, but they were also programmed that way. And lastly, they teach us that rich people are bad. Don't be rich. Anybody who's rich must be evil. In our TV, in the programs, in the stories we are told, all the people, even in the church, you shall be rewarded in heaven. Leave these worldly things to those people who are greedy and evil. It is wrong. Having money, having wealth is a good thing. You transform your society. You can contribute to your community. More of that another time. Lastly, the economic system. The economic system has been rigged against you. Capitalism is such a system that it helps the rich get richer and it keeps the poor poor, or even makes the system that has been designed for them. Especially today, when you see the power of the people in social media, they manipulate the social media. They have the best brains in the world. They hire these young people from the best universities, the cleverest people. They take them to Silicon Valley. They work for Facebook. They work for Amazon. They work for the great companies. And they use the most powerful algorithms using computer knowledge and artificial intelligence to study you. It's like hacking you. They hack your brain to make sure that you spend. They make it so convenient for you to press the button, buy. You'll buy anything, even things that you don't need. This system has been designed in such a clever way. Our young people are getting hooked on social media, living a lifestyle that is not real, instead of having a culture of saving, being frugal with money. When I see the people in India, in China, inherent in their values, we have embraced the Western system, and too many young people want to live one way. So the system is working against you. The billionaires have been the last. Now, the 10 richest people have doubled their wealth. In total, they have made over $5 trillion. The big banks have made so much money. The private equity funds have made over $60 billion in the last few years. Private equity funds. So the system is slanted against you, the poor person. You will always be a consumer. You're always on the receiving end. And it's hard for you to save when you're working and living hand to mouth, check to check. It's really hard for you to save, but we've got to find a way to break through. If you don't, and you need resilience, you need strength, and more about that. Lastly, these tech companies and their power of advertising is so powerful. The amount of money they spend, these beautiful brands, and I won't mention which brand because also I work with one of the biggest brands in Uganda, the breweries, the beverage drinks, they are so powerful. They advertise. When they start advertising, there's no end to it. You end up spending, buying, and you're hooked because they have huge advertising budgets. They are programmed to make sure they get you on board. When I listen to that beautiful Coca-Cola advert, even me at my age, I want to have a sip of Coca-Cola with its sugar and all its beautiful things. It's just something that you mix. It will bring the family to be together, to love one another more, to share that meal at Christmas. Advertising is powerful. So the odds are stacked against us. Don't take me wrong. Coca-Cola is doing what it's supposed to do, and they do great CSR work, and they contribute to the community. But you've got to be able to think things through. Don't let this get to your subconscious mind and you become a passenger or a leaf being blown by the wind. We've got to be able to make decisions. I want to end by talking about these pension systems and the power of these pension systems. I remember when NSSF was created, and it really struggled to grow, to gain traction. Nobody wanted to invest money. We saw them as a tax. But today, everybody wants to join a pension system. People realize the employees are happier. At one time, we had issues around management. They were squandering money. There were scandals. But the ship has been stable now for some time. A strong board, strong management. They've employed smart people. They pay those people well, so those people are not looking for corruption to cheat you. They want to make your money grow. Then their cost of running the fund as a cost is much lower. So I'm grateful for pension. And what's the point? Why does the government force us to have this money? Because all of us one day will grow old, and you will need money to sustain you. Most people retire between 55 and 65. Some push up to 70. But beyond that time, you will have costs. Your health bills will be much more expensive. You may still have children who are still going to school. You may have grandchildren who need some help. And traditionally, in African society, a father gives a child something as he retires. When your son graduates, you give him a piece of land or a plot of land or a car, or you help him start. But lately, it had become the opposite. That young people are trying to look after their parents, to keep them out of hospital and pay their bills and keep them in their house or give them a roof in the village, which is wrong because there was no plan about pension. Planning is so important. And the only way to maintain a pension system is to keep up savings. If you don't save, they cannot invest your money. If they don't invest, the fund will not grow. If they invest wisely, that fund keeps growing. Now, you as an individual, what do? You need to save. If you can save every week, I urge you to save every week. Don't just save every month. If you're paid and running a private business, put aside some money. That will help you so that you make an investment. But at the end of the day, you need discipline. I say discipline with a very big capital D, discipline. There are so many things that can help you become successful. And the factors for success are about 99. But there's one factor, which if you don't have it, the 99 will not work. And that is discipline. Discipline is a prerequisite to make the 99 other factors work in your favor. Others, they'll be working against you. You'll try several things, but if you don't have discipline, you don't have structure, you're always going to be struggling. So I urge you to focus on discipline and stay the course. As I end, my last slide in summary, and this is a message to everybody, my parting shot. Choose your friends wisely. The people you hang around, the environment you stick around will influence you so much. The 5 people in your life you spend most of your time will influence you so much that you don't even understand. So choose your friends wisely. From childhood, as you can see these lovely girls, growing up, you need to have friends who have the same values. People will support you to grow, not to pull you down, not to discourage you, to encourage you and push you in the right direction, to encourage you to read books, to encourage you to listen to podcasts. Don't just sit around playing on social media all the time. Instagram, the things that the young people are so hooked on, fashion, clothes, music. When I watch our TV in Uganda, all the channels in the free time, they're only playing music, and that dancing is so correlated to sex. And then you wonder why our population is growing so fast. Number 2, learn to be independent. Set aside some time to think on your own. That being independent in the mind is being able to ask a few people, what do you think about this? But at the end of the day, you make a decision. Your decision should be independent. You learn to make that decision. When I learned that, I started growing so fast. I would seek advice, I talked to mentors, but I had to make decisions. And that independence made me the man I am. You need to educate yourself. You need to invest in yourself. I've emphasized investing. You cannot make investments outside when you've not made investments within yourself, in your heart, in your mind, in your hands. Invest in yourself. Financial literacy. There are so many good books there today. Some are being written by Ugandans. Recently, I discovered a book called FinLit, A to Z. It teaches you all the basics about financial literacy in a very simple form. It's beautifully written by a Ugandan. Look for it. It's not that expensive. Every school should have it. Educate yourself. Understand the language of money. So many people graduate as lawyers, as doctors, and they have no understanding about money. And a doctor, after 6 years of training, you come out and you accept a salary of 1 million shillings. You don't have a car. You're on a border. You're living a risky life. You can't have children. You can't have a roof over your head. What was the point of that education? You need financial literacy. It is more important than this conventional education. Don't get me wrong. We need doctors. We need engineers. We need teachers. We need all those professional people. But they need the icing. And the icing is financial literacy. Next point is learn to say no. An emergency will come. You'll have to dip into your savings. People want school fees. I had over 500 people asking for school fees when the schools began last week. Every member of staff, we knew the date was coming. The government even announced the 10th of January, people are going to go to school. But people had not planned. Or even if they had planned, their savings had all disappeared. So everybody's looking for a small loan to start school. They'll pay back over the next year or in the next few months. Sometimes you've got to say yes. As an employer, you do what you can. As a big brother, as a father, you do what you can. You help those around you. You help your neighbor. You've got to do what you can. But you've also got to draw a line and learn to say no. Because that's what kills us. We have such a big extended family in Africa, all of us. And that extended family breaks your back. The little savings are withered away. The Europeans drew a culture long ago. When a child reaches 18 or 20 years old, you get out of the house, you've got to become independent. They learn to say no. You want to stay in the house, you contribute to the rent. Here we have this culture where people live in their father's house. They are 40, 45 years old and they are still living with their parents, and their parents provide the food. They don't understand that you've got to go out and deal with the elements of nature. You've got to be healthy. If you are not healthy and you don't look after your body, however much you try, you will not be successful. The pain will be overwhelming. I've seen very powerful people who just misuse their bodies, whether it was through smoking or excess alcohol, excess partying, not sleeping on time, eating rubbish, spending too much time in the office, sitting on a chair, trying to work hard, not work smart, doing things in a way that their body is not respected. Respect your body. Avoid too much sugar, these white substances. Avoid too much salt, it's a white substance. Avoid drugs, it's a white substance. Avoid white flour, too much bread, chapati, white flour. All these things will come back to bite you, these white substances. Look after your body. Eat the things we have always eaten here. Organic, good, healthy food, a lot of vegetable. Reduce on red meat. With wealth, more and more people are eating red meat, and they don't realize until they are drinking and eating red meat and they have gout. And they say that's a rich man's disease, and you feel good about it. It's terrible. You need to look after your body. I can't emphasize that. Lastly, as I end, you need resilience, because you're going to fall down many times. You're going to have so many challenges. And if you don't have that inner strength that gives you character, that resilience to push through, to survive in challenging times. Many of you went through COVID and we didn't know how we'd come out on the other side. We don't know if this is the end of COVID. We hope this is the end of it, because now Omicron came and most of us seem to have got it somehow or the other, or some kind of flu. We hope that now we have an immunity and life can go back to normal. Let's learn to live with things. That's only one element of resilience. In the financial world, it is continuous. We've had COVID since I was a kid. We are fighting with COVID, or financial COVID. A war that we are fighting where you don't see the enemy. He's invisible. But if you sleep, your money is gone. You snooze, you lose. You've got to keep an eye on whatever you're doing. Whether it's in business or you're being employed, be diligent, work hard, be disciplined, there must be consistency. There must be commitment. You must be resilient. Resilience is a magic word. I must end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Very insightful presentation indeed. A lot of learning from your vast experience. And I must say that, yes, I think I was smiling to myself and thinking the reason I am paid as a coach is to be a thinking partner. And what I heard you say is that people need a different level of thinking. Unfortunately, for many people, they still want to go to their brother, to their sister, to the house help to ask them where they should put their investment. So sometimes the people we are going to will help us squander our monies because we are asking the wrong people. And then there are a couple of things that I picked from the presentation. A realization that, yeah, we celebrate digital sales even right now. I mean, we are harnessing the digital spaces so that we are able to reach out to so many people out there who have called in. But we should know that everyone is looking out for an opportunity. What I pick from you, the fact that at any one time people are advertising. And so the question is, what are you consuming? I know that there are these memes that have been moving around that if your money is not enough, eat it. Okay. And people are taking it literally and eating their money because they live by the mantra YOLO, you only live once. So, how is that helping you when eventually we know that our life expectancy is improving and you might end up living for another 30 years after your retirement? Just think about that. One of the other things that I picked from your presentation is the fact that, yes, we are comfortably living in our parents' homes at 40, at 45, and we don't even want to contribute to the we don't want to contribute to the budgets in the home, which is kind of absurd. And yeah, as I listened to you, you talked about that the need for us to refocus so that we can have success. And you talked about knowledge, and you still continue to talk about savings. And I have two questions for you, Patrick, before I pass it on to Catherine for her reflections, and then we'll open it up to the other people. One of the questions that I have, because you mentioned that you have continued to be someone who is investing in knowledge, and I'm just curious to find out from you, what is your greatest knowledge, or what kind of knowledge did you invest in last year as we're having COVID? I'm just curious to find out what new learnings you picked from last year. The second question that I have for you is that many people are looking at the COVID season as a season of the economic downtime. And the question is, how can you make your money grow in a season where there is an economic downtime? Over to you, Patrick.
Pointed questions, and I don't know if it's easy to answer them in a minute or two, but you've got to continuously be investing in yourself. That's the first rule. I was investing in myself from the first week we went into lockdown. I decided to start reading because that gave me a chance to slow down. I confined myself in the first lockdown to reading. I even thought I could write a book during that period. So I spent a lot of the time doing research and thinking about my life and jotting down some things, putting them on a computer, and trying to save some of these ideas. Partly for the country, they were in the US and when the COVID hit, and they stayed there for about 6 months unexpectedly. They had gone for a 2-week visit and then got stuck there. So you jot down things because you don't know if this is the end of the world, and it was useful to reflect on your whole life. So the books I read were largely books about empowerment, building businesses, succession planning, the things you've got to do to be excellent, in pursuit of excellence, because you moved from mediocre to good. Now you want to move from good to excellence. How do you do that? What makes a good company last so much longer? That's when I began a series called Build Businesses That Are Built to Last. And I started doing live recordings, sending these recordings on YouTube and some on Twitter, Facebook, so that people who are following me could learn what does it take to build businesses to last. And I realized most of the people could not concentrate for 45 minutes or 30 minutes. So I started making very short clips of 3 minutes, 3 to 6 minutes. And then the following of those video clips started growing because people don't want to concentrate for a very long time. But that's the only way I could effectively share the messages that I wanted to share with young people, especially about building businesses, because too many businesses start and fall. They fail in the first few years. And especially during a COVID period, how would we pick ourselves up? How do you come out of this? You can see how the schools are struggling. So those are some of the lessons I learned, and I kept reading. COVID has been an unprecedented challenge. We've not been through this. It's like coming out of a war, and you've got to pick yourself up, and the government can only help you so far. The government has a limited resource envelope. And there was a feeling of a lot of negativity. They think, oh, some people stole the COVID money. Oh, some people did so well. And they seem to benefit out of it, which left a very bitter feeling in people's mouths. Already, there is so much inequality of income in the country. And the rich kept getting richer, the poor kept getting poorer. So I felt I had a huge responsibility to go out to the communities and do something different. So I had to begin at home. I went back to my home. I hail from Uganda. And we began an organization called ICON, which is Uganda Community Organization. And what was my agenda? I was trying to bring the community together, to do things together, because we had been bashed by COVID as a community. And the only way to come out together stronger was being united. A united front will be a stronger front. So I wanted them to be financially literate. And I had the privilege of inviting Charles Ochichi of Enterprise Uganda, who came to Uganda and spent a week training the people. And that training was tremendous. It turned around people's minds. That mindset change was unbelievable. Also, we had Stanbic Bank come and do an incubation and train the people. That alone. I just wanted to see, how can I help our community? Now, parish development model is going to come to every parish in this country. And the government is setting aside almost R1 trillion to give as a grant, not even as a loan. But that money will fall into a hole and never come out if people are not sensitized. They're not organized in groups, whether you're doing coffee farming, milk or beef or beans or mangoes, whatever it is, organize yourselves so that when the money does come, it finds you ready. You are receptive to turn it into it rather than just consume it. All these programs the government has had, some have had some benefit, but we would have had so much more benefit if we were efficient and we were well prepared. So that's what I've been trying to do, to build a model first in my home area of Uganda, then scale it, the neighboring countries, the neighboring districts, whether it is Kazo, Kitagwenda, Fort Portal, Mbarara, Bushenyi. I want this message to go across and they see how you do something, but you must have a model. And it's using data. It's a data-driven model. Because today, we need to use big data. We have so much power using the internet. We can capture so much. Everyone's got a national ID. We can know what people are doing. We can help them. We need to empower these people. And what they are lacking is simple financial literacy. What me and you see as common sense, they have no idea. And all we want is those who are earning 5,000 shillings, how can we help them to earn 10,000? Those who are earning 10,000, how can we take them to 30,000? He who's riding a border, how can he move from border to the next level of business? Because too many young people get in there, start making money from border and stop. It becomes a lifestyle. You can't be doing border for more than 3 years. It should be a stepping stone to something else. In fact, 12 months, pass on the bike. Do something else now. Do something that's a bit more intelligent, because graduates are now riding border. So we've got to change these people, and we can do it by sharing our message, empowering these people. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't help but see the passion that you really have and the commitment that you have to ensuring that you impact your community. On Friday, I had Headmaster read one of the comments where somebody was saying, that Dine and Dream was helping them kind of open up their world differently. And our focus was the need to be the influence. And like you, Patrick, I spent the whole of last year just reading. I signed up for a class that was a leadership class. And one of the things that was coming out of there, the need for us to impact the influence that we need to have around those around us. And I just thought, okay, why don't we use this as the theme for the year, be the influence? And from what you're saying, I can easily see that you are that influence in your community, and being able to just think and say, how do I share the knowledge that I have and put it out there? The key message that I've also had from you is the emphasis on invest in yourself, invest in yourself, invest in yourself. Yes, Headmaster is starting us off with a free class, a free financial literacy class. But what are you committing to learn? Because clearly what is coming out of this is that knowledge is a continuous journey. You will always be learning something. What are you committing to so that you're able to learn? How will you grow that brand? Don't be comfortable where you are. That's what I'm hearing Patrick say, that wherever you are is a stepping stone to the next level. Because if you don't have something that is driving you, then you're standing in your own way of progress. But it would also mean that probably you're sabotaging your earning potential. So now, Catherine, I'm getting back to you. We've listened to a very elaborate, insightful presentation by Patrick. Share with us, as somebody who heads human capital, what are some of those things that you would want somebody, especially the employees, because I can imagine the people who are in the business world are connecting with the presentation head on. What is it that we can pick from that? I am an employee. I might be working for one of the coolest brands or not so cool, but what is it that I can pick from that so that I can then use that knowledge to better myself?
Oh, good question. And thank you, Patrick, for sharing those. I also picked up a few things myself. So first of all, for me to state is that my primary whatever in life is that I'm an employee. So I completely why you're asking me that question, and maybe it's to just bring it back home. I think first of all we talk a lot as HR people about social we talk about your well-being, talk about, and Patrick has actually summarized it really well in his final slide. First of all, you cannot manage your money if the rest of your life is upside down. So there's a whole thing around the social structures around you. Who are your friends? Who's your is your coach around money, your drinking buddy? And I think I have the license to talk about drinking. Yeah. And just the things you surround yourself with. And they say that show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. So first create a balanced life, and balanced here is around your money, your spiritual health, your health itself, and Patrick has talked about taking care of your body, and then just keeping your mind alive, reading, learning, growing. And as employees, I think we are very privileged because you have the space to invest in yourself, whether it's your employer who's investing in you, or whether it's being able to walk to Stanbic Bank and say, can I borrow a few shillings? My employer is going to guarantee me. We have the opportunity to sort of invest in ourselves. So I think that would be the first thing I'll talk about, just that whole environment around you. Patrick also spoke about a plan. So a lot of us draw, we work in the office. We have plans in the office. We have the business will give us strategic plans that we follow, etc. What's your plan? um how granular is it? So are you saying that I will save 20% of my income, or are you saying every month out of my 1 million shillings I will put aside 20,000? You see, those are two very different things, because the 20,000 gets saved but the 20% remains a, an idea, a goal that some point you'll get there. I think the other thing is when thinking about debt, and earlier I talked about debt, is why are you taking the debt? Yeah. Is it for consumption? Is it for investment? Debt, good debt makes you money. So if you're investing in something that's going to have an income, that's going to bring back some cash back to you, because cash is king, go ahead and take the debt. If you're taking the debt because Catherine, who owns a shoe shop, has allowed you to buy shoes on credit and you can pay over the next 10 months, that's not good debt. And then back to what Patrick talked about from a discipline perspective, checking in with yourself every month. I when I said that I learned about money in my 30s, one of the difficult things they told us to do in that class was keep your receipts. What does keeping your receipts help you do? It helps you keep track of where you're spending money. Where's your money going? Remember, I said that sometimes that friend of mine disappears. So, because I understood my relationship with money, I keep receipts. Where did I spend? And then I find that sometimes, okay, my budget this month for entertainment was 100,000 shillings. I spent a bit more than that. What caused that? Come back and review, and do that on a monthly basis, because then it helps you at the end of the year, as you do the same way that you come back and evaluate how well you've done in the office. Come back and evaluate how well you've done as a person. Back, I said I'd invest my 20,000 shillings. So 20 times 12 is 240,000 shillings. Did I put it somewhere where it gave me interest? Okay, I got the interest. Did I reinvest the interest? So another thing we like to do is we save in cooperatives. And then when it's time to pay interest, what do? We take the money, reinvest that money. It's part of growing your wealth. Put it back. So 240,000 at 10% gives you another 20,000. So you're beginning the year not at 240,000, you're actually beginning the year at 260,000. And that starts your year. So just sort of using those little lessons that that Patrick has shared, and then converting them for those of us who are employees into little daily things that you track and things that you can hold yourself accountable for at the end of the month. I like that you talked about an accountability partner. That is critical, that is important. If you're in a couple, it could be your better half. If you feel you'd work better with a friend, get a friend who has the same values that you have, who sort of also understands money. And therefore you start to see growth. Whatever. I hope I've summarized it well enough for those of us who depend on that little paycheck at the end of the month. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. Now I want to transition into the questions that people have.
Yes.
Headmaster, I can see we have those people who are doubting whether really when I'm continuing to save with NSSF, will I ever get my money? But well, that's not the reason we are here. The key reason we are here is to just evaluate our personal finances and think about that. So apologize, take note of those so that maybe when you're closing, you can speak to them. But you just said that you wish, you kind of, your eyes were opened when you had already transitioned into your 30s. And somebody is asking here, what are the key things that a person below 30 should focus on to take on life with stability? Now that you can talk about that with hindsight. And the other question that you can actually respond to is, where and how does one find a mentor?
Wow. Okay. Let me start with the lessons I wished I had learned in my 20s. I think it was about the budget and that discipline. I think, if you're 20 and your first paycheck could be maybe even just 300,000, yeah, it's very tempting to change your lifestyle. Very, very tempting. And a lot of us change our lifestyles. We move to a new neighborhood. For those of us who are young, we move out of our mother's homes. And we want to go and be independent, which is a good thing. But if you're going to move out of home, look at that 300,000 and ask yourself, where is it going to get me a good place, a good and a safe place to live? If you have the option to stay at home, do, not forever, and then contribute to the bills at home, but then you find that you can save money better. So that's the first thing I'd have done. It's in terms of just having a budget and knowing where to invest money. So the other thing I learned in my 30s is getting a financial coach. Now, there are a lot of quacks, a lot of people who tell you, come, I'll show you what to do with your money. And there are also people who sort of, and this is no whatever to anybody in the insurance industry, they come and sell you these products, invest in an education policy, invest in this, invest in that. If you are in a pension scheme that's run by your organization, for example, or for example, even NSSF, there are people who are advising you in terms of where to invest this pension money. So they invest the money on behalf of the company that you work for. Reach out to them. Where's the best place to put my money? Where's the best place to sort of put aside a little bit of money? I talked earlier about the cooperative. I wish I had put more in the cooperative when I was younger, not for borrow, because then what I've seen in my older years is when I reinvest the interest that has come, it sort of catapults that money into more money the next year. So it's just sort of being very present to your money and having a really good relationship with your money, which I didn't have when I was younger. I thought money was for spending, not for saving, but having a really good relationship with money and understanding that money is a tool. It is not the end. It's actually a means to an end. It's not actually the end. The question around mentors. So let me talk about financial mentors, perhaps. And I like that Patrick has started what he's doing on YouTube. I actually follow him on YouTube as well, learned a lot of things. Also just admired the way he's been able to create intergenerational wealth. So you can see that even his daughters are coming up in the same way. So one is just following people on the internet. There are people who give great ideas. I think even at work, you will observe those who probably earn a lot of money, but you can't see it in their lifestyle. Speak to that person, understand where they're spending their money or investing their money. They usually have really good places where you can put your money. And then I'll tell you the people that I have learned the most from. It's the tea girl at the office. Those who work with us will relate with whom I'm speaking about. And it's even the girl who works in my own home. Because these people have a way of having separate sources of income. They have a way of putting money aside. They have a way of saving for their goals. I mean, these two women really inspire me because I know what they earn, but you can see that she's working really hard at putting that money aside. So that's what I'd tell my younger self. Have a plan, put something aside, and also understand where to put that money when you do put it aside. And I was meant to be talking about mentors, so I think I've covered the mentors, where to get the mentors. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, when we talk about the mentor, a mentor is somebody who has been there, done that. I know that a number of times I get people who come to me seeking for coaching services, and you realize that what they are looking for is actually a mentor. And in most cases, I'll tell them, well, that's not a service that I'm offering as a service, but I can walk them through in terms of what exactly are you looking for in this mentor. So when we are talking finance, it means that if you're looking for a mentor, then you're looking at that person who has made a breakthrough in their finances, not somebody who is still grappling with asking you, what money do I enjoy? Which one don't I enjoy? Because on your journey, you can get to a point where you can reward yourself. There's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself. But the key thing we are talking about, what does that journey look like? Now, Patrick, you're very strong on business, and people are inspired. I have two questions for you to start off with. One of them is how best, this is from one of the people that are following this conversation, how best can I get over the fear of starting an income generating project? How best can I get over the fear of starting an income generating project? And the other person is particularly wanting you to speak to culture. Like you said, has taught us you've taught us to be able to support our families and be useful back to our family ties. How do we invest when you are always about to work on your plan, something happens? Every time, you want to work on something and then a family emergency pops up. Patrick.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, I'll respond to that and try to keep it tight. How do you start a business? How do you overcome that fear? Number one thing is research. Don't compromise on research. Check, do your homework, do it again, ask somebody about it, look for a mentor, make a business plan, let them look at it. Do your research. Don't just copy everybody. Someone's open a video. Someone is selling Rolex, you all jump into Rolex. The neighbor is doing well, he's got 5 border borders, you jump into border borders. You don't understand the research he did, what he's targeting. So to overcome those fears, the more research you do, the better. Now, very many people who go to school, especially who are trained in finance and banking and the like, the element of risk, or the appetite for risk, is eroded from your stomach. You don't have guts. You're so risk averse. Anything that's got a bit of risk, you don't do. You can't do that. If you want to grow, you've got to embrace risk. Calculate the risks. Is it worth the return? If I do this, what are the pitfalls? How do I mitigate the risks? Can I insure against some of the losses? I see lately so many people are being told, get into agriculture. It's like a fad. Agriculture is extremely hard. It's not an easy thing to do. Of course, when you have nothing else to do, jump into agriculture. The beauty of agriculture is it's like a mother. It will never say, no, my industry is full, I'm not accepting. But better go into industries, better go into trading, better go into services, banking, MTN. Those things are easier than agriculture because there are so many things that are outside your control in agriculture. Even the guys who have got a strong stomach. I tried agriculture and I lost a lot of money. I still do some farming, cattle farming. It doesn't make money, but it gives me pleasure. Sometimes it makes money, the next year it loses money. Sometimes it makes money. So on average, I don't make money from agriculture. I'm not saying don't do agriculture. If you're going to do agriculture, do it well, full-time, not remote control. People have made money in coffee, in the most basic products, beans, groundnuts, millet. Those who go into horticulture, more sophisticated stuff, greenhouses, well, has avocado. The demand is always going to keep growing because our population is growing, and if we can even export something, a higher value product, that's even better. So I urge you to do your research, and that will go away. The next thing is read. I've gone to the bedroom because I keep my books in the room now. Whenever people want the sitting room, they borrow them and they don't return. For Christmas, just this year, I got almost 30 books from family members as Christmas gifts, because people know that that's the only way to please me. What gift will you give me that I will be really happy? So nearly all my close relatives give me books. And some of the questions were, what books should we be reading? So I'm happy to share with you. Maybe some of you who have got your phones handy can quickly take a picture of some of the books. The Power of Now. It's an amazing book. Don't postpone. Do things, whatever you can do today, now do it. I've seen people who have been mentoring, and this book has helped them transform their lives. I've seen them grow so fast in the last 4 years, 5 years, because of embracing the power of now. An amazing book. The Power of Discipline. I got this for Christmas, and I read it the day after Christmas. I went through the whole book. It's a small book, and I went through it immediately. Yet I think I have discipline, but it's written in such a way that was so powerful, so beautiful. You keep refreshing yourself. I talked about looking after your body. Total fitness after 40. You've got to look after your body, because if you don't, there's no point in having all the money and your body, you're stuck in a wheelchair or you're bedridden. So many powerful people struggle at the end when they try to address certain things later in life. And all it takes is half an hour, 45 minutes of exercise every day, if you can. If you can't do every day, at least 3 times a week. Exercise your body. Make sure you do your health checks. Look after your body. Another book that I really like, written by an author I really admire, is Tom Peters. He's the one who wrote The Pursuit of Excellence. Now he's written a new book, Extreme Humanism, Excellence Now. This is what I'm reading right now. Let me tell you a secret about rich people all over the world, not just here. The really rich people in this world always have a book by their bedside. They read, even if it's only for 5 minutes every night before they go to bed. You get in the culture of reading. If it's not at night, during the day, sometime in the morning, read a little bit, just a little bit, and you see how that paragraph will inspire you. It will take you much further. Other books that I'm looking at, I've not yet started, Purpose-Driven People. It's very good. I just browsed it. I've not read the book properly, but I'm going to. These are things that I'm looking forward to. These are like my Christmas gifts that I've not really opened. The Advantage. Also got it this year. My children know the kind of books I look for. My wife too. Lead from the Future. Very useful books. This year, or end of last year, I was appointed the chairman of Bolloré. I started reading about logistics. Bolloré is the biggest logistics company in Africa. Being made the chairman in Uganda needed me to refresh. I can't assume I know it all. You've got to go back and read. How to succeed in the African market. You've got to read before you go to these African markets. What are the differences? Some brilliant people, brilliant minds have these books. They make a very big difference, especially if you want to go to Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, doing many books that are being written. And these books can help you. So reading. This one is called Be, and it's relevant for Africa. It's written. Unlike some of the other books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, those books are inspirational, but they're written for a market that's different. Back home, we have some very good books. The Right Honorable Prime Minister Katikiro of Buganda, Charles Maiga, he wrote this book, Work and Prosper. He was inspired. I spoke to him when the COVID had just begun, and he took from the ideas I was talking to his group of people, where he was listening in. We did a 1-hour session, and he captured those things, and he says it motivated him to write this book. This book is for you in Uganda, for people with small businesses, someone with 1.5 million shillings. How can I start a business? How can I be inspired? How can I work hard to grow it? I talked about financial literacy. A Ugandan has written this book, One Peter Nyazi. It's a very good book. Very simple. It's almost like a dictionary, how to understand the business terms in the language, whether it's a stock market or your small business. So embrace yourself with books. Embrace yourself if you don't like reading, with podcasts, with CDs, with DVDs. Listen, learn, but continuously keep growing. You grow by reading. That's how you become a doctor. You become a PhD. You're reading. You become richer in knowledge. That knowledge cannot be taken away from you. You can be arrested. You can get sick. Eventually, you get better. The knowledge is in your head somewhere because you read the book. I urge you to read. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Clearly, what book is by your bedside? If you're on this call, what book is by your bedside? Because clearly there is no end to reading. If you don't like to invest, at least at a bare minimum, go and invest in a book. Patrick told us, choose your friends wisely. Well, you can see that he has a stack of 30 new books that were given to him by his friends. What are your friends giving you? or the only thing that you know how to do, you're looking forward to the 24th so that you can go and storm some of those places. Go with some books that you can actually look at. Quite an interesting insights right there. Patrick, I still have another question for you. And the question is, I have quite a few things here and there that at times I get overwhelmed, and yet I still want to do more. How do I manage? How do you manage to keep it together with so much to oversee? And the next question is, I and husband own 2 retail shops which have failed to grow. Instead, we keep restarting since every worker keeps going with money. Sell but don't declare. Then after we audit, we find stock missing. I and husband do not stay in the shop all the time since we have our professional jobs but do record keeping. And Catherine, after Patrick, I want you to respond to the question, is borrowing money to build a house a good debt because it doesn't generate you any money? Is it worth the risk? And the other person is asking, where do you draw the line living and enjoying your life now while also saving and investing for the future? So I'll start with Patrick and then wind up with Catherine.
Okay, I'll try to be short on this one. Sometimes my responses are too long. First of all, there are assets and liabilities, and I'd like to assure everybody knows what's an asset and liability. You've got to choose where to spend time. The more assets you have, then it's easier for you to manage your liabilities. Never let your liabilities overwhelm you that they exceed your assets by far. And it's one thing to have assets and liabilities, but what's important is the cash flow that comes from the assets enough to sustain the liabilities. Cash flow is so important. I need to emphasize that. Now, how do I manage? I do so many different businesses. In fact, I tell people, don't do like I do like I say. Specialize on 2 or 3 things if you have to. Why? Because in Africa, we don't put all our eggs in one basket. You find every rich man in Africa has got 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 businesses. Look at Dangote in Nigeria, look at South Africa, Ramaphosa. Everybody has a portfolio. You don't risk and put everything in one place. Why? Because with the stroke of a pen, a government can change the rules and then you're offside. You find your business is gone. Or something can happen like the border is shut down. If your business was to Rwanda for 3 years almost now, your business will be closed down. So you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Lately, you see the line at the Uganda border coming from Malaba because of COVID testing. A 70-kilometer line of trucks can't come in. If you've run out of fuel or you've run out of a product, what do you do? So you've got to diversify your business. We in the hotel industry were hit so hard because of COVID. We're still bit right now, but we have learned to be resilient. And if I put all my eggs in one basket, where would I be? At least I had telecom, I had energy, I had electricity, I have different projects that had some revenue streams to keep me afloat and make sure I have some cash flow. Now, to do that, you need to build a system. A system is so important. When I tell people, what is a system? A system that works. When you start a business, you build a system around it. Someone says they have supermarkets and they keep collapsing because you've not built a strong system. Especially retail supermarkets, they need a very robust system. You have seen Uchumi rise and fall, Nakumat rise and fall. We are seeing so many of these people get into retail. And it's not a joke. It's a very tough business. You're dealing with so many products and a tricky business. So you need to embrace technology as much as possible. And the system must work all the time, not 99% of the time, 100% of the time. Otherwise, the pilferage is so high, you're out of business. So once you've got a system, then you scale it. You can expand. I began with one Simba Telecom shop. I made sure the system was working. I opened 5. I retested the system. Was it strong enough? Then I went for 50 shops in Uganda. Then I went to Tanzania, 50 shops. I went to Kenya, 50 shops. I kept opening up shops because now I have a system. And it's the system that protects me. I have good people working, managing the system, but you can't count on the people. There must be checks and balances. There must be a system that will quickly red flag anything. And that's what keeps the system running. The cash flow, because it's airtime or money. It's a very high turnover business, but very small margin. So you've got to make sure it's running smoothly. Everybody must know what they are part. You must pay people on time. If you don't pay their salaries or what have you, you're inviting trouble. You have security, insurance, rent, electricity, so many costs, but you must make sure the system is working. It's not working for 20 years. Now, building a system is the hardest part, but once you've got a system going, it's good. And you just keep tinkering with it, fine-tuning it to make it a little bit more robust. So those are the things you've got to do to build a system, to grow a business, to diversify your portfolio. Then you have different revenue streams. I like to use the example of River Nile or Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is full to the brim, because there are so many rivers that feed it. The rains coming in from all these small streams and swamps, from Congo, from Rwanda, from Burundi, from Tanzania, they come and feed Lake Victoria. That's how your revenue streams are. That's why this river Nile starts from Lake Victoria, the source of the Nile, and goes through Sudan, Egypt, all those countries, until the Mediterranean, and the water keeps coming in. We have small streams that feed it, but it feeds all these people along Africa until the Mediterranean, because it's got so many small revenue streams. So think of your business as having small revenue streams that eventually add up. Then you can afford to say, I can buy this car, I can buy that house, because the revenue streams are there, they're reliable. You get a hiccup with the hotel industry, suspend revenue, close it down. Look at the people in the nightclubs and bars. They've been struggling now for over 2 years. So if you didn't have an alternative, if you didn't have something that brought in money, then you're exposed. I think that touches the two questions that have been asked about how do you manage all these businesses? You've got to build a system, you've got to scale it, and also the supermarkets, people who are in businesses. You've also got to build a system that works. I hope I've covered your questions. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll take the two questions. The first one was about the house, whether to borrow to build a house. I will say the answer to that is yes, for the simple reason that if you are giving up paying rent to a landlord to move into this house, what that does is that it frees up money for you to invest, because now you're no longer paying somebody else. You're no longer making somebody else rich with your money for paying rent. When it comes to making decisions around should I invest in property, now when we're talking about it as an investment, think about a few things. And first of all, one is time horizon. How quickly do you want this money back? And secondly, look at what else is happening in the market. So we are a bit afraid of financial instruments, but sometimes things like bonds, long-term bonds, make a lot of money, 10%. The house rental is 3%, and you're not getting capital appreciation. So look at those kind of things when you're making the decision whether you're buying for investment or you're buying for yourself. So for yourself, it's helping you save on rent. It's that you can consider that saving on rent as the income that's coming into you. The thing around balancing, I hope I've answered that correctly. The financial advisors will tell me, but that's my simple assessment of how you should make that decision. The one around balancing a good life and saving for the future. So one of the things, and I hope Patrick correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that wealthy people do is that they spend less than they make. So when you spend less than you make and you have a plan, what must be in your plan as well as you plan for investing, for paying rent, for paying school fees, put aside some money for entertainment. Put aside some money for donations, because there will be people who will come around with something in the office, someone has passed away, you want to give. Put aside that money, budget for it. In the same way, budget for your entertainment. And when you budget for your entertainment, it means that you've decided in your head, this is the maximum amount of money I'm going to spend every month from my salary for entertainment. If I reach the end of that, I don't have money. And back to what Patrick said, learn how to say no. I think that would be the summary of my answers to those questions.
I'm going to kind of ask the final question, and it's going to Patrick. It's also related to what you just shared. Somebody asks, okay, what would be, and I mean, I'm relating this to the fact that Patrick just shared and said people have, the wealthy guys tend to have a investment portfolio. So someone is asking, what would be the best investment for a middle class professional if rentals, stocks, real estate, that is land, do not seem to be good investments and return on investment or investments is low? That what would be the best investment for a middle class professional? So I don't know whether it's just about the middle class or is it just about people in the corporate space, but the person is asking where can they make their investment, because what seems accessible to them, rentals, stocks, real estate, do not seem to be good investments, and return on investment on these investments is low. Over to you, Patrick, and then I'll pass it on to the headmaster.
Okay, thank you for that. If I can first begin by saying with housing as my co-panelists elaborated very well. Let the numbers lead you. Do the numbers. Too many people are simply lazy. If you're going to rent in Kololo or in a prime CBD area, do the numbers. If you buy the property or rent it, which is cheaper? It may be cheaper to rent a property, especially in the CBD area, whether it is in Nairobi or Kampala or London. You go and get a very nice property, and the rent is so much cheaper. To buy a property in Kololo today is about $2 million if it's on one. That's why the diplomats come here, an ambassador, they want to rent a property and they want to give you $5,000, $6,000, which looks a big amount of money. But when they give you $5,000 per month and you do the numbers, you're going to get less than 5% return, 3 or 4% return on your property. Whereas if they offer to rent than to buy. Whereas if you're in the rural area or a bit outside the CBD area, let's say you're in Nigeria or wherever, then it may be cheaper. You're in Mukono, you're in Jinja, you're in Masaka, you're in Barara. It's cheaper to build and buy your own property. It works out, the economics works out. So appreciation is one measure, but a longer term gain. The normal one which you've got to use is what is the rental return? If the property can pay for itself inside 10 years, then you get 10% return. If you've got to wait 20 years just to get your capital back before any profit, then you're getting 5% return. Anything below that is not a wise investment. So most of the people who are working and say, oh, I'm not making money in farming, I'm not making money in building, I've built mizigos and I'm renting out, the return is low. Yes, you cannot compete with financial instruments. The last 5 years, financial instruments have been very well. When I say financial instruments, what do I mean? Treasury bills, investment with some of these companies like Britam insurance companies, Stanbic Bank, they've got investment funds where you put unit trusts. They're giving a return of about 16%. If you can get 16%, no risk. Inflation in Uganda has been checked, has been below 3 or 4% for quite a long time. It peaked once at above 6, but was straight away brought back. So inflation is what you worry about when you keep your money in cash. But many people bring their money from overseas and they buy stocks, they buy shares, they buy bonds here. They lend to the government. I think the last bond the government did was 16 or 17%, and they've locked that for 10 years or 20 years. When you imagine that you're compounding your money at 17%, that's a very good rate of return. And the government is almost risk-free. So the research you have to do is not so much. You can do the research within a week. You can go to the right advisors, they'll write and give you professional advice so that you see the opportunity, you line up your money. If you've got a lump sum, whether it is 10 million or 100 million, you can invest. The alternative is in some of the stock markets. Some of the shares in Uganda have not done very well because our market is not what I call a perfect market. Sometimes you do very well as a company and the stock price drops. I declare an interest because Omeme is one of the companies that I chair where we have done well as a company. And the value of the company has depreciated so much in spite of doing very well for the shareholders, where you get a decent return. And the return has been above 20% because it was enshrined in our contract. We had a 20% guaranteed return in our investment. So we've always given about that much in return, 20%. So anyone who invested in shares in Omeme, you'll get the dividend. You'll share the dividend with the company. And the company has to give dividend. MTN has recently listed. Its share price dipped slightly, but it's one of the most profitable companies. It's a matter of time. If they declare the dividend and the dividend comes out, it's got to be a healthy dividend so long as the company remains profitable. So you do your research around these companies. What is the management like? What's the board like? What's their business model like? Does it look sustainable? Especially now that more and more people are using mobile money. The company is making a lot of money. The turnover of mobile money has grown over 150% in the last 5 years. And it's still growing, going to greater heights. COVID just accelerated that. Those who never thought of using mobile money now are using mobile money too. So it's something that we're going to embrace for the future. People want services, delivery, logistics, whether it is food or goods, watches, mobile phones, iPods, these headphones, all kinds of things young people are ordering. They want to order them online. They expect them to come. And when the trust is being built, more and more people are moving digital. So services are being delivered that way. Not only those electronics, but also food. People are ordering their food. Matoke, beans, what are being delivered to their homes digital. And you get a relationship with a customer, a good supplier who you know is reliable, his products. His pricing is fair. He cuts out the middleman and brings directly the products to you. So the future is good. All you have to do is a bit of research, like I said, apply your mind, ask a few questions when you're in doubt, get somebody like a mentor to guide you. Many of the things we are talking about all the time. And there's so much information today on YouTube. Use the information available on the internet. There are so many things, whether it is your health or how to fix something, even a car that breaks down, even to change a tire. Go to YouTube. I see my kids use YouTube all the time to sort out any problem, whether it's on their computer, mechanical, because they have embraced this technology. So we, the older ones, have also got to do so if we're going to stay in time. Thank you very much. And I think that was my last question. I hope the show has been useful. I want to thank the audience that has been very receptive. Thank you for the kind words too.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for that for the closing remarks, so to speak. And I know the headmaster is going to take over. And as you take over, there is something that we didn't answer, but since you're the head of this school, you'll be able to answer what is a financial goal or resolution. But before I do that, I'm going to ask Catherine, what are your parting shots?
It's a good question. I think coming here and sitting here, it's sort of also made me reflect. So I'm not one of those people who set goals for 2021. I was too confused after 2020. So beginning 2021, I was in a space of real deep confusion. And so now I'm having to sort of recoup. I'm one of those people who's trying to recover from 2020 and start again in 2022. So just and I know there are many of us like that in the audience. So my parting shot is, whatever you do, whatever you take out of this session, take just one thing out, just one, and implement it in 2022. Out of all the fantastic things that Patrick has shared, just take one thing. For me, it's going to be maybe a more balanced life around, just making sure that I have the right friends around me or something like that. But just take one thing out and make that your 2022 agenda in terms of how you manage your money and how you get your finances back to where they need to be in this year. That would be my parting shot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, our panelists. But you are not yet off the hook. Yes, time will allow us for you to answer that question of what is a financial goal. Actually, it's one of the notes that have been given, that it has been one question that has been coming up over and over again, and we should be allowed to get that answer. So, Joan, how do you allocate that question so that we get an answer to it?
I had actually passed on that question to you, but you decided to dodge it as the headmaster of the school, because there is a reason why you started these classes, right? In order to kind of get that for us able to manage the expectations. But the way I would actually look at the financial goal is for you to know, what is my next level, if I may put it that way? Because I'm sure the reason we work every day and look for a better position is that we want to get somewhere with our finances. And therefore, the key thing would be for you to sit back and ask yourself, what is the kind of financial situation that I am in right now? Where do I want to go? Who am I? What is my relationship with money right now? So it's a couple of different things, and then you decide what stride are you going to take in order to look at that financial picture that you have drawn for yourself. Because if I'm, for example, my turnover is 10 million as a company and I want to double that, it will become my financial goal. But then it means that I'm going to ask myself, how do I manage self? Who do I need to be in order to manage that journey? If I want to grow as a professional and get a higher paying job, for example, then it will be a question of how do I position myself? So it would actually be a whole class around it. By the simple way is to say, what is that financial picture that I'm painting that I need to work towards? But you can give us a better textbook definition by the headmaster.
Well articulated. Thank you so much, Joan. As we conclude this, I have nothing to add to that. You are the expert here. But one thing I also need to let the audience know is, when it comes to personal finance, no one is an expert. Everyone is on that journey. And the earlier you realize that, the easier things can be on you. I am so honored humbled when you hear Patrick saying, I am on my journey. I mean, we invited him, we knew he had arrived. Patrick, we thought you had arrived, but you have assured us you're on your journey. And that is something that needs to be answered. There are questions that are really coming in, and Patrick, I'll just throw this to you. If I want to be among your mentees, the mentees of Patrick, what is the criteria to have one-on-one with him in business? Patrick, I don't know if you can answer to that, then I can have my closing remarks. Patrick?
Thank you, Apollo. I'm dated by young people who want to be mentored. And if I could mentor everybody, I would love to do that. That's why I'm now looking at how do I spend more time in health? How do I spend more time in education? Rather than chasing more money, I'm spending my time doing social activities. But I can't put everybody in a classroom. And I can't have a one-on-one with everybody because the day is too short. There are too many young people. That's why I spend time recording these videos, because that way I can target 15,000 people. They have more or less the same questions. If you see the questions I get on Facebook, and I have quite a number of people following me there, they have very similar questions. So I try to process them and bring them into a format of some kind, where when I address a certain subject, I'm addressing so many young people. Simply because I can't take on everybody. It's just physically not possible now to take on everybody one-on-one. I have a family, I have 4 children, and even they don't have enough time to see me. They're always fighting for my time because I've got so many businesses to run and I want to spend time with them. And when I was much younger, I spent so much time chasing business. I'm trying to make up for that period. When you have this life work balance where you've got to give your family a bit of time, but it's simply not enough. So I can't commit that I'll take on more young people, but somehow those who know how to get onto my mentee list, they find a way. I won't tell you on public how it is, but they find a way. But you must stand out. You must do something that is startling. I must believe that you're special, because there are so many other people who are mentoring people, and there are very many good coaches. They don't have to be very successful in business, but they are good coaches. But then to find a combination of a good teacher and a person with the experience, there are few people. There are many people who are very experienced, especially in Chikubo. They understand business, but they simply will not talk. They don't want to come out and share their ideas and their thoughts, partly because they are scared, or partly because they just don't know that it's so much more beneficial when you do so. So these are the challenges I have. But when somebody is really exceptional and makes their mark, I take them on. And I've been very happy with those who have taken on, who have come on merit. But some people come to me, they want me to mentor them. They've never read the most basic book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They've never heard of it. Now, how do I start with you? You've come to somebody who's like a professor in teaching, and you want him to teach you ABCD. The basics are there. Begin with Tony Robbins, Richard Kiyosaki. Read all the books. Read some of the books I've shown today. And then you can look for somebody else. And I say that with a lot of humility. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Well said. To the end of this conversation, it has to come to an end. But one of the things I need to let the people know is you were kind enough to accept our invitation. We know you traveled, but you still made you made it work. You said, "What much as I've traveled, let me have this done." So for all those people looking for these platforms like this, you can actually, if you're looking for Patrick, you can engage into platforms like this. You already had a sneak peek on what my homework usually is. I usually ask my panelists what books they advise the audience to read. Patrick has shared quite a number, and we do this offset after we are finished. But because you on that other side, I will tell you we had a number of books for you as gifts. We always give our panelists books. I will show them to you after, but they will be delivered to you. But before that, let me ask Joan to give us his book pick. We have seen a list of about 20 from Patrick, but let's have your book pick. That's something you advise someone to read, and why. Then Catherine.
This month I'm kind of a slow reader. Let me put it that way, because I was busy planning for Dine and Dream. But the book that I'm currently reading is by somebody called Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk.
Think Like a Monk.
Pick that book from Aristotle. Beautiful, beautiful book in terms of just understanding how you free your mind and just focus on the things that matter, and how you gain clarity in terms of the different things that you're doing. So I think it's a book that has just come in right on time for me to reflect upon it. And of course, when I read, I don't just read a book like I'm reading a novel. Before I put down a book, I must ask myself, what did I implement out of that book? So Think Like a Monk is my pick by Jay Shetty.
And I know you're a very strong advocate of hard copies. Talk about that. Hard copy, or we can get it online.
Well, you could try and pick it online, but I just love the smell of the pages. Even my personal book is also now on Amazon. So if somebody wanted to pick it from there, it's on Amazon. But I love the smell of pages. But also because, as you can see, my generation loves almost highlighting books, moving around with a marker and whatever it is. So the key lessons are always highlighted so that I know if I run back to that book, there is something that I will run with out of it.
Thank you, Joan. Joan from Imagine Me Africa. Catherine, I'm avoiding your second name.
Oh, it's very easy to pronounce. It's Njonjo.
Yes.
Yes.
Of all had. Please, your pick.
All right. So, for purposes of the audience, I think a book I've found particularly powerful is Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. Just that book changed so many things for me in terms of just understanding, why do I do this? What's the purpose of this? And it will answer questions in your personal life, in your professional life, even the questions around your money. Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I'm exactly like Joanne. The books that I really like, hard copies, because you can scribble, you can highlight, you can come back to it again. You can also lend it to a friend and say, this is a chapter I liked. But like Patrick, I've also stopped lending because people don't return my books. So just start with why. That's a book I'd recommend.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Patrick, you've given us a list. Do you want to add anything to that before I give you mine?
Thank you very much. I appreciate lovely audience and NSSF.
From my end, Patrick, this is to you, but the ones in the studio will definitely have the chat after. We, as NSSF, we focus on the books written by Ugandans. One of the books you talked about it, the ABC, F-Lit, Financial Lit, FinLit, A to Z by Peter Nyanzi. But to add to that, and you already have that, so we won't send you a copy. We are sending you a copy of The Great Financial Rebuild. It was a book written in during COVID by Livingstone Mukasa. He has embraced this this panel. He has sat on that chair. You've talked about this one by the Katikiro. The Katikiro also in October embraced the seat where Catherine is sitting. This one we are not sending you. You already have a copy. Joan is sending you this one. Corporates at a Crossroad. It's been a pace setter. It's for corporates. It will be a good read for your employees, but it will start with you. And then finally, the book which we first bought as NSSF from a Ugandan, Moses Mukasa. Moses Mukasa, Straightforward Financial Growth. It's a good book on financial, personal financial management. Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you so much, Joan. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's indeed a pleasure to have brands like you share stage. Just take off 2 hours of your life, actually 3 hours plus the time of us of us preparing this, putting it together, just to address the audiences. The audiences, I hope you can take this seriously. You can pick up all. You don't. We as financial literacy, we don't want you to take everything. Just pick out one and run with it. We thank you so much, everyone that has tuned in. We thank the Capital Markets Authority who are in this journey with us, and also Renzori Mineral Water who sponsor our water, and the panelists and the crew here. They have agreed to sponsor for this. It's their resolution to give us water for the entire year. Thank you so much. I am. I asked Catherine, what will you sponsor that we are allowed to take during that day, but there was no answer to that. From our side, from NSSF side, the financial literacy team, the NSSF management, and everyone from this side, we thank you and say happy New Year. Till we meet again next month. Thank you.